Good morning, everyone. Indeed, there are many threats to peace and justice that confront our communities, country, and the world. Foremost is social injustice that breeds poverty and hunger. Thus, we must have a society free from war, one that protects and promotes the rights and dignity of every human person, and serve the common good. I am JC Beans Mercado Somebang. You can call me JC, or you can call me Vince. And it is my great pleasure to introduce to you the different culture of justice and peace in the Philippine context. Without further fuss, let us formally begin. First, let us define what it means to have a culture of justice and peace. According to Archbishop Antonio Ledesma, the culture of justice and peace proposes that a culture of peace and justice will be attained if human rights are promoted and respected, if people are able to enjoy fundamental freedoms and are able to participate in decision making. Additionally, it is about poverty being eradicated. Development is enjoyed by all. If people respect, accept, and embrace diversity, if the environment is protected and the use of resources take into consideration the future generations, if wars are no more and the inner resources of love, hope, and kindness are in each one. And so, why is it important? Culture of justice and peace cultivates awareness, concern, and behaviors that lead to just and peaceful conditions, structures, and relationships, which seeks changes in people's mindsets, attitudes, values, and behaviors that, in the first place, have either created or exacerbated violent conflicts and unjust structures. There are many threats to peace and justice that confront our communities, country, and the world. For instance, the United Nations reported that 836 million people still live in extreme poverty, and about 1 in 5 persons from developing regions live on less than $1.25 a day. In the Philippines, 32.9% of the population are still considered poor. How about we delve on how the Philippines is promoting the culture of justice and peace? First, the Philippines aligns its program in justice and peace through the Sustainable Development Goal number 16, which promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. The Philippines aim to significantly reduce all forms of violence and work with governments and communities to end conflict and insecurity. Promoting the rule of law and human rights are key to this process, as is reducing the flow of illicit arms and strengthening the participation of developing countries in the institutions of global governance. Second, Education Pathways to Peace in Mindanao. Education Pathways to Peace in Mindanao is a 9-year education program that is supported by the Australian government in partnership with the government of the Philippines and implemented through the Ministry of Basic, Higher, and Technical Education of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. It seeks to improve equitable participation of boys and girls in education in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, contributing to greater resilience, stability, peace, and prosperity in the region. The program actively fosters collaboration among stakeholders to improve education policy and delivery in ways that support social cohesion and peace building. Third, support indigenous communities in the Philippines during the COVID-19 crisis. The Indigenous Peoples Rapid Response Program is a USAID-funded grant aimed at supporting indigenous communities. Indigenous peoples in the Philippines experienced limited access to information in the COVID-19 pandemic, health and safety measures, and government assistance in indigenous languages. The pandemic and subsequent lockdowns significantly impacted IP communities and caused increased food insecurity, increased joblessness due to loss of tourism, sale of handicrafts, and seasonal work, as well as constraints on their ability to access support from other government agencies. Next is the VAUC, or the Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children Act of 2004, is a law passed to protect women and children from violence. Also known as RA 9262, the law in keeping with the provisions on human rights enshrined in the Philippine Constitution. Indeed, violence against women and children takes on many forms such as physical violence, sexual violence, psychological violence, and economic abuse. Thus, the law seeks to address the prevalence of violence and conflict against women and children. Fifth, strengthening institutions and empowering localities against disasters and climate change. SHIELD aims to make all people in target communities safer and more resilient to the impacts of disasters and climate change. SHIELDs work with local governments to fund and implement informed and inclusive resilience actions. Shield is being delivered by a consortium through a multi-stakeholder partnership approach in close collaboration with key Philippine government partners. It is being implemented in 10 of the most vulnerable provinces to disaster and climate change impacts, including Metro Manila and the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. Next, Safer Kids PH is a program that supports the Philippine government in raising public awareness on child online safety, improving capacity of police and courts to detect, investigate, and prosecute cases, and ensuring that quality support services are accessible for vulnerable children and families. The program is aligned with Australia and Philippines' shared commitments to protect children from all forms of violence. Safer Kids PH is delivered through the Australian Federal Police and a consortium of UNICEF, Save the Children Philippines, and the Asia Foundation, in partnership with communities, schools, private sector, international and local organizations, and other like-minded donors. To wrap up, justice and peace is about a society free from war and threats, one that protects and promotes the rights and dignity of every human person through economic, political, and socio-cultural systems, structures, policies, and practices that serve the common good and not merely the interests of a privileged few. In that sense, do we have any questions? Alright, if there are no questions, that concludes how the Philippines is promoting the culture of justice and peace in the spheres of education, society, economy, and politics. Once again, I am JC Vince Mercado Somebang. Thank you for listening.